Hello dear learners, welcome to week 9 of short stories, folk tales and myths in climate change literature. This should be a very interesting week because we get to discuss the cultural elements in climate change literature which vary from country to country, which have numerous contexts, and the important thing is that these myths or these folk tales, they are pieces of ancient wisdom. They are handed down orally from one generation to another. So many of these short stories and folk tales, they are a sort of a moral system for behavior in many places around the world, in many towns and remote locations and localities. So there is a kind of custom and tradition around these folk tales, and they have originated from oral storytelling, and there is something in them that is very valuable in its contribution to climate change literature, because these folk tales and myths and stories, they are very valuable because these short stories, folk tales and myths, they tell us about how human beings cope with climate change and climate events. They teach about sustainability. They talk about harmonious relationships with the natural world. So it's very important that we look at this element of the story in climate change literature. So it could be a story that is from the past, folk tales or myths, or it may be a modern day story based on folk tales and myths. So all climate literature is about climate, is about saving the environment, is about connecting with the environment. So what is the importance of folk tales and stories? They have always been a part of the human relationship with nature. There have always been experiences with nature which have been conveyed through oral stories. So they are stories that talk about climate events, about storms, about earthquakes, about flooding, about rain, about droughts, and they are all about the climate experience, and they have a wealth of wisdom which can be useful today. This genre is a very important and interesting part of climate change literature, and as I said, it holds a wealth of wisdom related to climate change and resolution. What is the historical background of this genre? There has been an evolution since earliest times. Human beings have always lived in the environment. Whether we talk about Darwin's theory of man having evolved from apes, or we talk about the Abrahamic religions and the story of Adam and Eve, the background is nature. So the beginnings of the human being are nature, and the human time is very small. The natural backdrop, the environment is so many thousands of years old. So environmental themes in short fiction, they reveal a gradual but significant evolution in how authors approach the complex relationship between humanity and nature. So as time has passed by, there is an evolution in the approaches, in the understanding, in the techniques of expressing this relationship between humanity and nature. So we will find nature themes in stories that were written in 11th century England. We talk about the Anglo-Saxon literature. So we have stories there about monsters. We have a story about Grendel. So there are so many stories there, and everywhere there's that natural background. But as humanity evolved, the relationship between nature and human beings became more complex. So in early short stories, environmental elements were in the background. They were often treated as a backdrop, or they were treated with subtlety, as the narrative focus leaned more towards adventure, survival, and the raw power of nature, with nature acting as a setting or a symbolic force. So they never focused directly on nature uh, as a player in the story, as a protagonist in the story. It was human beings who were always the protagonist, and nature was in the background. So when we think of Anglo-Saxon literature, it's a sea in the background or the forest in the background, but the protagonist is always the human being. There are many folk tales around the world about climate change, and I think they are countless. If one were to look up various encyclopedias and blogs, they are countless, and they tell us about the richness and diversity of climate change literature and climate change stories, folk tales and myths, and you can find them in any number of languages and literatures, and nature and culture sometimes come together. So there's a celebration of culture too. So they can be Japanese, Chinese, that is Asian, or they can be European, or they can be American. So they are they can be Native American folk tales also. That's what I mean by American. So there was a blog that I came across titled The Multicolored Diary, and it has listed a number of folk tales from around the world, which I found extremely interesting. So these are the folk tales that are from different countries, and they talk about climate change. The folk tale from the Netherlands, titled The Lady of Stavron, is about respecting the gift of food. Lady Stavron, the rich merchant woman, out of anger, insults wheat and dumps it into the harbor, refusing to even feed the poor. Actually, she had asked to the captain of the ship to find her the best thing in the world, to go out there and bring the best thing in the world, the most precious thing in the world. So he went out there and he brought some wheat, and she gets angry. She says, this can't be the best thing in the world. He said, this is food. This is the best thing in the world. There can't be anything more important than this. So instead of even feeding the needy who needed that food, she dumped it into the harbor in anger. And what happened? She was punished. Her trade was stopped and her city was destroyed. And the spirits of the sea, they blocked her trade by putting stones on the harbor, and the city to where she belonged, that too was destroyed. So you can see this idea of respecting food, and it brings to mind the idea of Annadana, the story by Vandana Shiva, the Indian uh, environmentalist and writer. She talks about food, and it is an outcome, or it's a product, it's a gift that comes from the harmonious relationship between human beings and nature. And she says that the processed food is food that has no nutrients in it. In fact, it harms our health because it does not have the spirit and heart and soul of the relationship of love in it, the nurturing, the caring that has come in the food chain. So that food is sacred. The idea in various religions, in Hinduism, in Islam, in Christianity, that the idea of giving food is it's a sacred duty to feed strangers. So this lady in this story that we considered, she dumps that food, she puts it down, and therefore she is punished. She eventually becomes a beggar woman. She loses everything. So we can see this beggar woman symbol could be somebody who loses the beauty of one's soul, somebody who is punished by sadness, guilt, agony. So a beggar may not be somebody who doesn't have money. A beggar can be a one who loses that beauty of soul and the prosperity, the happiness, the cheerfulness, and that's what becomes because she denies and she insults this gift of nature. So we can see that this is a theme of climate change, how we insult food, how we insult the gifts of nature. Another story, Encante. This folktale is from the Amazonian basin. Boto, the pink dolphin, takes revenge from humans who kill dolphins for sport or pleasure. So, we know that sometimes animals are killed for food, but there is something called as hunting and killing for pleasure. So, we also know that the dolphins are in a very precarious state and they are endangered species today. So, this story reflects on that and may have been written so many centuries ago, may have been coming from centuries ago. So, she is the dolphin who takes revenge from humans who kill dolphins for sport and pleasure. And what happens? The dolphins drag the humans underwater to Encante, the enchanted city. And here they are punished with having to do a task, and that is a task with healing the injured dolphins. So, this is the task, and when the task is complete, they are returned to the shore. So, and they are returned with a warning to treat dolphins with the same respect meted out to humans. So, again there is this idea of respecting nature, of considering it as a part of oneself. So, giving the same respect that you give to humans, give it to nature also. So, again we can see that this is a very interesting folktale which talks about issues of climate change, about connecting with nature and giving respect to nature. Chamorro legend from Guam. So, this legend is from one of the islands near Australia, and it is a folktale about the anger of nature spirits for not giving anything back from what was received from the land and the sea. Now, this is a very important idea in ancient systems of belief. When nature was revered, nature was adored, nature was respected, and whatever was received from nature, thanks was offered and it was compensated in some way. So, like some plant, maybe it's a mango tree, or maybe it's a tulsi plant, or maybe any other tree, for it is thanked for the fruit, for the medicine that it gives us, and then we water it, we thank it, and we nurture it in return, and we feel that we are uniquely gifted by this plant with all its blessings and all the things that lead to good health. So, this is the good relationship, and this is what we mean by giving back. Not taking and just taking for granted, but trying to give back in some way. When the land gives us, we do something to make the land fertile, and we do not destroy its ecosystem by adding poisons and chemicals. So, we do not spoil its system, we try to enrich its system by giving it what it needs, by praying, by thanking. And even in today's day and age, there are people who have their personal orchards and gardens, and they believe that more than watering the flowers, one has to have a personal relationship with the flowers and the trees and the plants. Thank them for blessing you. Pray for them. There are people like that I have known. They pray to the trees every day. They to them and they pray for them. They thank them. They nurture them. They care for them, and thus what they receive is a bounty which is blessed, and the blessing multiplies twice fold. It multiplies so many times more because one is has developed humility, and one has developed gratefulness, and one is not a plunderer, one is not one who bullies and destroys with violence the very source which gives one food. So this was exactly the case in this legend from Gom, that the nature spirits were angry that these people, they were not giving anything back, and they were always receiving from the land and the sea. And as a result, there were a series of extreme climate events that follow. First drought came, and then drought was followed by famine, and finally there appeared a giant parrotfish which starts eating away the island. So this monstrous fish is eating away the island, and now it's a something about survival. They have to try to save themselves and save their land from this monstrous creature, this monstrous fish. So with great difficulty they put their nets out, and they try to catch the fish. Individually it is not possible, but with collective effort and with great difficulty they catch the fish. So it is interesting how collective effort mentioned in the story is also suggested as a resolution to climate impacts today. So one of the resolutions is collective effort, that when people get together as a group, as a community, they can certainly do something about climate impact rather than people doing things individually. So one can see in this folk tale this idea of collective action, collective effort, this unity, this brotherhood between human beings that really works. King Erysichthon, he is punished for cutting down the goddess Demeter's sacred trees. Now this is from Greek mythology. He is punished by goddess Demeter for cutting down her trees in her sacred grove, and he receives punishment when the guardians of the grove, they go and report this matter to Demeter. He is punished by a famine entering his stomach, and that makes him so hungry that he wants to eat anything and everything. His hunger is so insatiable that he devours everything. Ultimately, only his daughter is left, whom he sells for food. So you can see the moral degradation that sets in when one breaks one's connection with nature, how all the vices come in when one starts to break that essential connection with nature, and that connection which means one's wholeness and completeness of personality. So when there's a break there, then all kinds of vices are there. So he starts suffering from an insatiable hunger, he starts eating everything, and his daughter is left, so he sells her for food, but fortunately she escapes through the magic of shape shifting, but he tries to sell her again and again, and each time she escapes. but his hunger is not abated, and the food is lesser and lesser till he devours himself. So what is this symbolic of in this folk tale, this hunger? It means, hunger, that human greed for more and more profits, for more and more money, it is insatiable. There is no end to it. So it's like Gandhiji himself said that it is something that is hunger, the greed is something that is insatiable, and it's something that will never be enough for anyone. One has to keep trying to get more and more. So eventually you devour yourself, you destroy your personality, you destroy yourself and your happiness in that pursuit. So that's why he says, the story says that he eventually devours himself, he finishes himself. As we know, this is symbolic of man's greed, which is insatiable and can only end with humans wiping themselves out. This is so symbolic and this is so futuristic, this folktale, telling us the outcomes of greed and violence, what happens, one destroys oneself when one is on that path. And that is exactly why climate change is occurring. That is the very reason. There is another story titled Drop of Honey. Now this story too illustrates the chain of effects when humans pollute an ecosystem. So we know that we have dirtied and polluted the rivers and the ocean, the air and the earth. So what happens when we do not want to go out there and clean up, when we are not going to hold ourselves accountable and realize that when we have dirtied something, it's our duty to clean up. So one important philosopher also said, climate change is like a sink full of dirty dishes that we forgot to wash or we just were too lazy to wash, and that's why it's collected. So it's like some tasks need to be done every day. One needs to be careful about certain things every day, and so they won't pile up. But this king is very lazy. He drops honey on the ground while he's eating it, and then he says, cleaning is not his problem. He says, cleaning is not my problem. He lets the honey lie on the ground. So this is what it is about pollution. Industrialists and industries will pour chemicals into the rivers. Well, it's not their problem. They are getting their profit. Everybody goes home with their salary. So what's the problem? The water will take care of itself. So in other stories also I've heard the same thing, that why so bothered if there are no crows or no sparrows? Oh, things will be okay. They'll take care of themselves. Anyway, you can go to a gene bank and preserve the genes of these animals. There's no problem. How can you say that they are extinct? You can always bring them back. So these are things that show laziness, inaction, indifference to nature, and how we pollute and we refuse to take responsibility. So what happens to this honey that is lying on the ground? It attracts a fly, the fly attracts a lizard, the lizard attracts a cat, the cat a dog, and the event escalates into a civil war, and the palace of the king burns down. So how well this story illustrates how humans are burning down the earth by global warming. How well the story, it's just a folk tale, and it has this element of fantasy that with this chain of these animals catching each other, and then the escalation into civil war. But the real reference and the real context to present day is there, and whenever this story was created, it predicted the future, that one event will lead to another. The industries will think of manufacturing and getting maximum profit, so they will use plastics, and then the plastics will go down the water, and when they go into the water, the fish will eat them, or the turtles will get poisoned, or the ocean and will get clogged. The chemical composition of the water uh, will be disturbed or will be changed, and when the composition is changed, then the rate of the rate of the currents in the ocean, they get affected. The temperature of the ocean gets affected, and when the temperature of the oceans get affected, then various marine lives are affected. The coral is affected, and various species become extinct. So this chain effect, which has been mentioned in such a playful manner, it has a factual reality to it, which is happening today. And this is what climate change is about. And how well it says that first comes civil war, and then the palace of the king burns down. How did it start out? It started out with his laziness and his stupidity. So here is a very important lesson about mitigating climate impact. The folktale of Sedna from Inuit mythology. Sedna is considered the mother of the sea. So she is the mother of the sea. She wants the sea to look beautiful. She wants the sea to be clean. And we know that the sea is a source of survival for human beings, supplying with herbs, with food, with fish, with medicines, and so many other things that we cannot manage our lives without it every day. So what happens to this goddess? She gets angry when she sees the people are polluting the sea waters, actually dirting the sea waters and desecrating sacred nature. So they are sinning against the sacredness of nature by doing all sorts of things that make the water dirty. And the result is that all the dirt and the animals, they get tangled in her hair, and a house is flooded, and the land has no food. And the bad results of these evil actions are that everything gets tangled in her hair. All the dirt and all the animals that have been harmed, they get tangled in her hair. Her house gets flooded with water. Normally the water would flow out, now it is flooded, and the land is going through famine. And there is only one way to free her from all this distress that she is suffering. A shaman is called to comb her hair very slowly and remove everything that has got tangled in her hair, and the people have to make a promise to respect nature and not kill animals irresponsibly if they want to free her. So again can see this, nature is sacred, and if one wants to please the goddess, if one wants to live in harmony with the goddess or with nature, then one must make a promise not to mistreat it, not to disrespect nature, not to destroy its sacred nature, and not kill animals irresponsibly. So we can see again there's an idea that comes to us from climate change. As I said earlier, that there are various countries in the world which have stories, legends, myths, folk tales, all related to climate change. And now this one is a very interesting one, how a climate crisis helped shape Norse mythology by Maddie Savage and Benoit Derrier from BBC. So this is a BBC report, And these two reporters mention how the discovery of a mysterious stone in Sweden revealed that the Vikings were concerned about climate catastrophe 1200 years ago. So the Vikings came to what used to be England once um, in the 9th century AD, and they were concerned about the extreme climate events that had taken place, and they had recorded everything on that stone. So the inscriptions on this stone that was discovered, on this rock stone found in Östergötland, allude to climate crisis that took place before the stone was placed. So they are inscriptions in the runic language on this rock stone, and which give a record of climate changes or climate crisis that had taken place about 500 years before that stone was placed there. And it's like a story form. It mentions the volcanic eruptions that led to crop failures and the wiping out of 50% of the population. So one can see that climate change was a concern so many years ago, and human beings have always lived in nature, with nature, and therefore they are stories about nature. So let us stop here. We will discuss more in the next lesson. I hope you found this new topic related to climate change literature interesting. Thank you.